Welcome to Elena, Storyteller, a place where novels, love stories, social psychology, and timeless sayings are retold with deep emotions. Join Elena to listen, empathize, and embark on the emotional journey of today's story.
Amid the raging Oregon coast, where the stormy sea could swallow everything, a fateful moment unfolds when Ethan Walker, a cold, reserved engineer, pulls Amelia Hart, a daring journalist, from the scythe of death. They thought they were only strangers, yet their hearts began to beat in rhythm with the storm. But hidden behind their fragile, blossoming love are painful secrets. The past of Ethan and the history of Amelia's family intertwine, turning love into a fragile flame in the middle of the tempest. When undercurrents divide them, when destiny tests them, will they have the strength to overcome hatred and reach the sky of freedom? Sparkles a love story both fierce, dramatic, and romantic, where the heart dares to triumph over fate. Backhand index pointing right beyond the storm, love, if strong enough, can overcome any hurricane. Chapter 1, The First Storm. The wind howled violently along the Oregon coast. In the ashen sky, storm clouds twisted and collided, as if ready to collapse upon the ocean. Towering waves roared, foaming white as they hurled themselves against jagged rocks, a sight both majestic and terrifying. Coastal pines bent under the storm, branches whipping through the air like lashes tearing apart the night. Amidst the chaos, Amelia Hart stood precariously on a cliff. Her thin coat clung to her small frame, drenched by rain and sea spray. In her hands, she clutched her camera, lens pointed toward the sea. Each flash of lightning illuminated her face, her brown eyes burning with unmistakable determination. Amelia was a freelance journalist. Some called her reckless, even insane, for always appearing where danger was greatest to capture the truth. But for Amelia, it was the only way she truly felt alive. Click. The shutter snapped, drowned by the wind. She had just captured the moment a crashing wave struck the old lighthouse, turning it into a glowing beacon in the dark. Amelia's heart trembled with exhilaration. This photo would touch anyone who saw it. But a split second later, her shoes slipped on the moss-covered rocks. She gasped, her body swaying, her camera nearly slipping from her grasp. Before her, a towering wave, a black wall of water, charged toward her. In that moment, Amelia knew there was no escape. Is this the end? The thought flashed through her mind as swiftly as lightning. But instead of the cold grasp of the sea, a powerful force yanked her arm backward. Amelia's body toppled, colliding against a broad, solid chest. Warm breath, tinged with the salt of the sea, brushed against her ear. "You're out of your mind, aren't you?" A deep, husky voice rose above the storm. Amelia looked up. Before her stood a tall man, his chiseled face carved like stone, his steel-gray eyes glinting with cold fire. Rain streamed down his cheeks, darkening his already drenched hair. A heavy coat clung to his frame, streaked with mud. Clearly, he wasn't just a passerby. This man was Ethan Walker. Amelia blinked at him, still shaken, her heart pounding from her brush with death. But stubborn instinct stirred inside her. I was just doing my job," she stammered, her voice trembling yet resolute. Ethan's gray eyes flashed with irritation. His grip tightened on her shoulder, as though to ensure she wouldn't fall again. "Your job is to risk your life in a storm like this." Amelia bit her lip. Rain lashed her face, but a strange smile tugged at her lips. "Maybe it is." Ethan froze for a moment. He wasn't used to people like her, people who could smile even after nearly being swallowed by the sea. For an instant, he saw something in her eyes, something like fire. A fire he thought he had lost long ago. But his coldness returned. Ethan released her, turned sharply, and started to walk away. "Leave this place. The storm is worse than you think," he said flatly, his voice like a command. Amelia narrowed her eyes at his retreating figure. She didn't know who he was, but deep down she felt this wouldn't be the last time they crossed paths. There was something about him, something both safe and distant, like a mountain sealed in ice. The wind howled again, dragging her back to reality. Amelia tightened her grip on her camera, whispering under her breath. The mysterious man, Ethan Walker. She had no idea that this encounter would alter the course of her entire life. In the distance, thunder cracked like a warning. The storm had not ended. But another storm had already begun, not out at sea, but in the hearts of two strangers, colliding on the edge of life and death. Chapter 2: The Man Behind the Wall of Ice. Seattle, just another rainy day. In this city, it seemed the rain never ceased, casting a misty veil over everything. Inside a small cafe on the corner of Pike Place, Amelia sat by the window, eyes fixed on her laptop screen. The photographs she had taken during the Oregon storm were still vivid. The furious waves, the lightning ripping through the sky, and that fleeting moment when a strong hand pulled her from the abyss. She zoomed in on the final shot, a blurred image, shaken by her trembling hands, yet still capturing the silhouette of a tall figure standing against the raging sea. Amelia's heart tightened. She couldn't shake that image, nor could she forget those steel-gray eyes, so cold and unyielding. Ethan Walker. The name she had gleaned from a rescue worker when she asked about the mysterious man. The more she thought about him, the more questions gnawed at her. Why had he been there in the heart of the storm? And why, when he could have walked away, had he chosen to save her? The next day, Amelia received an unexpected invitation from a local newspaper to cover a feature on a group of engineers developing new rescue aviation technology in Seattle. The topic sounded dry, almost lifeless, until the moment she arrived and her heart skipped a beat. Ethan was there. He wore a simple white shirt beneath a gray vest, his tall frame standing out in the crowd. His voice, deep, steady yet firm, resonated as he presented a new type of aircraft designed to aid in emergency rescue missions. No one in the audience could have imagined that just days earlier, this same man had stood in the storm, fierce and untamed like a warrior. Amelia watched in silence. To her, Ethan seemed like two different men. One, the dangerous figure in the tempest. The other, a calm, rational scientist commanding attention under the spotlight. When the meeting ended, Amelia approached him. "So we meet again." She smiled, her tone playful yet warm. Ethan turned, his silver-gray gaze locking onto hers. For an instant, surprise flickered across his face. But then, as quickly as it appeared, his expression turned cold once more. "Reporter," he gave a curt nod, his voice flat. "I thought you'd be busy writing about storms. Didn't expect you to follow me into my work as well." "Let's call it fate." Amelia lifted her chin, her brown eyes sparkling. "Don't you think it's strange? The sea brought us together, and now the city arranges for me to find you here." Ethan's brows knit, his arms folding across his chest. "I don't believe in fate, only choices and consequences." The words struck her. In his eyes, for just a moment, she glimpsed a shadow of pain, deep, buried, and heavy. She realized then that behind his icy armor, Ethan was hiding something he didn't want anyone to touch. That night, Amelia quietly began digging into his past. What little she uncovered told a story. Ethan had once been a gifted trainee pilot. But after a plane accident years ago, he had abandoned the cockpit and turned to aeronautical engineering. The tragedy had claimed his father's life and left wounds that would never fully heal. Amelia's chest tightened as she read. Now she understood his distance, the darkness in his eyes. Ethan had lost more than family. He had lost his dreams, and perhaps his faith in destiny itself. The following day, Amelia found another reason to approach him. They ended up sitting across from each other in a small cafe near his office. Outside, rain drummed heavily against the windows, each drop echoing like a muted heartbeat. "You know," Amelia began softly, hands wrapped around her steaming cup of coffee, "I like the rain. It feels like a sad song you never get tired of listening to." Ethan took a slow sip of his black coffee, silent. Yet his eyes softened, almost imperceptibly. "I hate the rain," he finally muttered, voice low and rough. "It reminds me of a past I don't want to remember." Amelia didn't press further. She understood he was building another wall between them. But instead of retreating, she gave him a gentle smile, her eyes glowing with quiet determination. "Then maybe," she said softly. "I'll be the one to teach you how to love the rain." Ethan froze, caught off guard. He hadn't expected such honesty, such boldness from a stranger. Something stirred inside him, an unsettling mix of irritation and warmth, but he quickly smothered it. "Don't try to change me, Amelia." His voice dropped, cold and warning, almost like a plea. "I don't need anyone stepping into my life anymore." The sharpness of his words should have pushed her away. But instead, Amelia felt more certain than ever. Ethan Walker, the man behind the wall of ice, was a story she wanted to tell, to uncover, to step into, even if it meant braving every storm. Outside, the rain fell harder, relentless. In the quiet of that cafe, two people sat face to face, each carrying a tempest within. Neither of them realized that this very night of rain was already writing the next chapter of a love destined to battle against countless storms. Chapter 3: The Nameless Wounds. Seattle, another rainy day. Droplets pattered against the glass roof, streaming down onto the crowded streets below. For the people here, the rain was so ordinary that no one paid it any mind. But to Amelia, every rainfall was a song, each with its own unique melody. She sat in her small apartment, eyes fixed on her laptop screen. The article about Ethan Walker's aviation project was fully edited, ready to be sent. Yet her fingers hovered above the key, unable to press send. Every time she read his name, her heart tightened, not with fear, but with a pull of curiosity mixed with something harder to define. She remembered his eyes, always cold on the surface, yet beneath them lay a silent sorrow unlike anything she had ever seen. To Amelia, Ethan was like an iceberg. What showed above the water was the frozen shell, but below lay an ocean of memories, losses, and nameless wounds. That afternoon, Amelia went to Ethan's testing hangar, using the excuse of needing more material for her article. He looked at her with an expression caught between surprise and irritation, but in the end, he allowed her to stay. The hangar was vast, filled with the roar of machinery. Ethan, in a protective jacket, was inspecting the massive rotors of the prototype aircraft. He worked with absolute concentration, every movement precise, like a soldier on a battlefield. Amelia watched quietly, scribbling a few notes, though her mind was far from her notebook. Instead, she kept circling one thought: why is it that I can't look away from this man? After some time, when Ethan paused to rest, Amelia stepped closer and said softly, "You work as if you're fighting a war." Ethan glanced at her, answering curtly, "In a way, it is a war." He wiped the sweat from his brow, his voice lowering. "A war against the past, against mistakes, and against myself." Amelia froze, struck by his words. It was like a shard of broken glass, revealing a hidden fragment of his soul. "Ethan," she hesitated, then asked gently, "that accident years ago, does it still haunt you?" The air instantly grew heavy. Ethan's gray eyes darkened, his hand tightening around the screwdriver until his knuckles turned white. "Who gave you the right to bring that up?" His voice was sharp, his gaze like a blade. Amelia flinched, but she didn't back down. She knew she had touched the deepest wound he kept hidden behind layers of ice. "I don't have the right," she admitted, her voice trembling but earnest. "But I want to understand you, because I see you living like a man trapped." Ethan let out a bitter, hollow laugh. He stepped closer, his eyes boring into hers. "What do you know about me? You're just a reporter, someone who digs into other people's stories to turn them into articles. But my life is not for telling." Amelia stood silent for a moment. Then, suddenly, she lifted her head, meeting his stare head-on. "Maybe you're right, but if you think I'm only getting close to you for the sake of a story, then you're wrong." In that instant, their eyes locked. Ethan saw no cheap curiosity in her gaze, no hunger for scandal, but rather a rare sincerity, a sincerity he had long stopped believing in. He turned away, his voice dropping low, almost weary. "Don't waste your time on me, Amelia. I'm a man who's lost everything, and when a man has nothing left, he has nothing to give." Her heart ached. His words tolled like a funeral bell inside her. Yet at the same time, they only deepened her resolve to step beyond his walls, to uncover the man hidden beneath all that ice. That night back home, Amelia couldn't sleep. She returned to old archives, digging through stacks of yellowed newsprint, and then her breath caught. An article from years ago stared back at her. The headline screamed, "Walker Airlines declares bankruptcy after tragic accident." She read line after line, pulse hammering in her ears. The bankruptcy hadn't stemmed from the accident alone. It had been accelerated by financial pressure, shadowy stock dealings, and ruthless takeovers. And there, among the names, was the one that shattered her world: Richard Hart, her father. Amelia's hands shook violently. Her thoughts spun in chaos. The man she was just beginning to fall for, the one carrying wounds carved deep into his soul, was bearing a pain that her own family had helped inflict. Tears blurred her vision before she realized she was crying. She buried her face in her hands, her heart splintering into 1,000 pieces. My God, if he ever finds out the truth. She shivered, imagining the hatred in Ethan's eyes if he learned her father's role. The fragile flame of love that had only just begun was already cast under the shadow of a cruel truth. And for the first time in her life, Amelia didn't know if she should keep moving toward him or step back to protect him from herself. Outside her window, Seattle's rain fell in endless rhythm. But inside Amelia's heart, a far fiercer storm was rising, one that bore a name she could no longer escape. Ethan Walker. Chapter 4, When the Heart Trembles. Seattle was still drenched in rain. Droplets slid down the window glass in long streaks, blurring the world outside like an ink-wash painting. But inside Amelia's heart, the rain was no longer peaceful. The night before, after discovering the name Richard Hart in those old files, she had felt as if she had fallen into an abyss. Everything suddenly became fragile, and questions stormed through her mind. Do I even have the right to come closer to him? Or was this love doomed to be a tragedy from the very beginning? The next morning, Amelia received a message from Ethan. "This afternoon, if you're free, come to the workshop. There's something I want to show you." Just a single line of text, yet her heart raced. He had not shut the door between them. Perhaps he, too, wished to open himself, even if only a little. By late afternoon, Amelia arrived at the workshop. Sunset light streamed through the wide doors, painting the vast space in gold. Ethan stood beside a prototype aircraft. Unlike his usual cold demeanor, his eyes today seemed softer, carrying a strange, quiet resolve. "You're here," Ethan said with a slight nod. "I want to show you the dream I never finished." He handed her a set of blueprints. The lines were intricate yet elegant, merging modern engineering with daring vision. As Amelia studied the designs, her heart stirred. This was what you once wanted to create?" she asked. Ethan nodded. "Before everything collapsed, before I lost my family, my career, and my faith in myself." His gaze grew distant. That accident claimed more than 100 lives. Among them was my younger brother. Amelia froze. She looked at him, the broad shoulders trembling faintly, the eyes that seemed so strong yet brimmed with unshed grief. For one aching moment, all she wanted was to hold him, to take away his pain. But the truth she carried, her father's involvement, pressed down like chains, silencing her. All she could whisper was, "I'm sorry, Ethan, I truly am." Ethan looked up, a bitter smile tugging at his lips. "You don't need to apologize. You had nothing to do with it." Amelia's chest tightened. But what if he knew the truth? The thought sliced through her like a blade. In the days that followed, Amelia found herself returning often to the workshop. At first, it was under the guise of work, but gradually, it became something her heart craved. She wanted to be near Ethan, to witness him rise from the ashes of his past. And Ethan no longer kept her at a distance. On the contrary, he let her stay by his side during test runs, scribbling notes with him, sometimes even laughing when the propellers malfunctioned and scattered dust everywhere. One evening, after the technicians had left, only the two of them remained in the cavernous workshop. Ethan played an old jazz record, letting the saxophone's mellow notes echo through the empty space. Amelia sat on the stairway, watching him bend over the engine. The warm light fell across his face, sculpting it in lines both strong and unbearably lonely. She spoke without thinking. "You know, Ethan, when I look at you, I see a warrior, scarred but still standing." He looked up, his gray eyes flickering. Setting down his tools, he walked slowly toward her. Each step narrowed the space between them. "And you, Amelia," his voice was low, rough. "You're like a light. I don't know why, but whenever you're here, the darkness inside me feels less suffocating." Amelia's heart trembled. She wanted to believe him, but fear gnawed at her. If the truth came out, would that light become the fire that destroyed them both? Standing before her now, Ethan's gaze bore into hers, stripping away every layer of defense. He leaned closer, their breaths mingling. "It's been so long since I felt this way," he whispered. "Do you know, Amelia, you make me want to live again." Her heart burst into flame. His breath brushed against her skin, warm, unsteady, achingly real. She could not hold back any longer. When their lips met, the world shattered into 1,000 sparks of light. The kiss was neither long nor hurried, but it carried all they had suppressed: longing, sorrow, weakness, and hope. When they pulled apart, Amelia saw something new glimmering in his eyes. No longer cold or guarded, but open, a man willing to let another hand reach for him in the dark. Yet in that very instant, her chest constricted in pain. Because she knew this fragile, newborn love stood on the edge of a precipice, where the truth could destroy it at any moment. Outside, Seattle's rain kept falling. But inside Amelia, there was more than just the storm. Amid the downpour, another rhythm had begun to beat, the trembling heartbeat of a love both beautiful and perilous, like a flame in the wind. Chapter 5: Secrets in the Dark. Seattle at night was swallowed by fog. Streetlights glowed faintly through the mist, yellow and fragile, as if about to fade. Amelia sat in her small apartment, desk lamp on, a stack of files she had hidden for days lying before her. She could not run from them any longer. Each time she looked into Ethan's deep gray eyes, each time she felt the quiet tenderness he unconsciously gave her, guilt stabbed her heart like 1,000 blades. She opened the file. Numbers, diagrams, and investigation reports stared back at her. On the final page lay the name she feared most: Richard Hart, chief engineer on the project, her father. Amelia's hand trembled as she traced the letters. That man, distant in her memory, had abandoned her and her mother when she was still a child. Now he returned not as a shadow of the past, but as a monstrous guilt, casting darkness over the fragile love just blooming in her heart. "Father, was it you who helped cause the tragedy that took everything from Ethan?" The sudden ring of her phone jolted Amelia. The screen flashed, Ethan Walker, her heart clenched. "Hello," her voice quivered. "Amelia, are you all right?" Ethan's voice was deep, warm, but edged with concern. "I just completed some test runs. I want you to see them. I think we might be on the verge of a breakthrough." Amelia bit her lip. She longed to run to him to share his joy, but the name Richard Hart burned in her mind. What should I do? If he finds out, what will happen? I'll come," she whispered before ending the call. The workshop blazed with light at midnight. Engines roared in trial runs, mingling with the patter of rain outside. Ethan stood at the center, eyes alight with a determination Amelia had never seen before. "You came," he smiled, rare, fleeting. "Look at this. If this engine succeeds, I can finally complete the dream I once lost." Amelia stepped closer, watching numbers scroll across the monitor. Her heart beat wildly. Ethan was coming alive again, piece by piece. And yet, the more he came alive, the greater her fear grew. If he discovered the truth, would this fragile love burn to ash? Summoning all her courage, she began. "Ethan, there's something I have to tell you." He turned, his gray eyes locking on hers with such seriousness that her voice faltered. Before she could speak, his phone rang. He answered, and his expression darkened immediately. "I'll be right there," he said curtly, hanging up. "What happened?" Amelia asked anxiously. "A group of investors are doubting the project's viability. They demanded a meeting tonight." His voice was taut. "I have to go." He took a step toward the door. then paused, eyes resting on her. "You'll stay here, won't you? I trust you." The words struck like a knife. Trust. Just two simple syllables, yet they made her want to break down in tears. How could he trust her when she was hiding a truth that could shatter everything? When Ethan left, Amelia sank into silence in the cavernous workshop. Outside, the rain fell harder. She pulled the file from her bag once more. Each page was a thorn, driving deeper into her heart. Suddenly, the workshop door burst open. A figure stepped inside, not Ethan, but Lucas Gray, one of Ethan's engineers. He had never hidden his irritation at Amelia's frequent presence here. "Amelia, what are you doing here alone?" Lucas's eyes narrowed, falling on the file in her hands. She started, fumbling to hide it, but Lucas was faster. He snatched the papers and flipped through them. His face hardened. "This is the investigation report from the accident." His voice was sharp. "Why do you have this?" "Give it back," Amelia cried, panicked. Lucas sneered, his gaze icy. "Richard Hart, the Hart name. Don't tell me you're connected to him." Amelia froze, her whole body trembling. I'm not." "So that's it." Lucas cut her off, voice dripping with disdain. "You got close to Ethan for what? To dig up more secrets? To sabotage his work all over again?" "No," Amelia screamed, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I would never hurt him." Lucas's stare lingered on her, then his lips twisted in a cruel smile. "I'll tell Ethan the truth. He deserves to know who he's falling for." Amelia collapsed to the floor, sobbing, her tears mixing with the rain dripping in from the open door. "Please do." But Lucas had already turned away, the file clutched in his hand. The door slammed shut. Darkness swallowed Amelia whole. Her heart splintered into pieces. She knew the real storm was about to break, not outside, but within the fragile love between her and Ethan. That night, Amelia returned to her apartment and curled up on the couch. Her phone rang again and again, Ethan calling, messaging, asking why she had left the workshop. But she couldn't answer. Her trembling hand clutched her chest, as if letting go would cause her heart to fall apart entirely. In the dark, she whispered, "Ethan, if you knew I was Richard Hart's daughter, could you still look at me the way you do now?" Outside, the rain fell endlessly, like a prophecy of the tragedy drawing near. Chapter 6, The Truth Exposed. The next morning, Seattle lay beneath a heavy blanket of fog. Amelia woke after a night of restless tossing, her body weary, but her heart weighed down even more. The image of Lucas leaving the workshop with that folder haunted her like a nightmare. She knew it was only a matter of time before Ethan learned everything. Her phone rang. On the screen glowed the name Ethan Walker. This time, Amelia couldn't run anymore. She drew a deep breath and answered. "Amelia, we need to meet." His voice was firm, leaving her no chance to hesitate. "Tonight, at the workshop." Her heart tightened. She knew the moment of reckoning had come. The workshop was eerily silent when Amelia stepped inside. The overhead lamps cast a cold, white light down onto the empty floor. Ethan stood there, his face rigid, his fists clenched. On the table beside him lay the folder, opened wide, its secrets exposed. Amelia froze. "Ethan," she whispered. He lifted his head. His gray eyes were sharp as blades, no warmth left, no trace of gentleness. "Why didn't you tell me?" His voice was hoarse, trembling with anger. "Why did I have to hear the truth from someone else?" Amelia's body shook. Tears welled up. "I wanted to tell you. I tried, but I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" Ethan's voice cut like steel. "Afraid I'd find out you're the daughter of Richard Hart, the man who signed those flawed designs, the man who buried my brother and hundreds of innocent souls." Each word struck her heart like a hammer blow. "No, you don't understand." Amelia shook her head, sobbing. "My father abandoned us when I was little. I knew nothing of him, nothing of his sins. I have no part in that crime." "But his blood still runs through your veins," Ethan shouted, his eyes burning red. "I opened my heart. I trusted you, Amelia. Do you know how long it took for me to trust again? And this is how you repay me, with lies." Amelia broke down. I never wanted to deceive you. I just didn't want to lose you. Silence fell, heavy, suffocating. Ethan turned away, unable to look into her tear-streaked eyes. His hands trembled, fighting both rage and the ache tearing through his chest. You should never have walked into my life. His voice was quiet, but every word cut like a blade. I can't love someone who bears the name Hart. Amelia's heart shattered. She stepped forward, reaching for him, but Ethan recoiled. The distance between them widened, like an abyss no bridge could cross. Ethan, please believe me. I am not him. I am Amelia, the woman who loved you from the first moment by that storm-tossed shore. Her voice cracked with desperation. Ethan closed his eyes, inhaling deeply before opening them again, cold, unyielding. Leave, Amelia, before I hate you even more. Her world collapsed. She fled the workshop into the downpour, the rain mingling with her tears, salty on her lips. Everything crumbled beneath her feet. She had lost Ethan, the man she had finally dared to trust, the man her heart had just begun to beat for. Inside the workshop, Ethan stood motionless in the shadows. He stared at the blueprints before him, but all he could see was Amelia's smile, her eyes, her trembling voice. Amelia, the name echoed inside him, dragging with it a pain that nothing could erase. He knew she was not Richard Hart, but the weight of the past, the loss of his brother, the scars of betrayal, would not let him open his heart again. That night, Amelia sat on the cold floor of her apartment, her laptop glowing before her. On the screen was a half-finished article. Its title, Beyond the Storm, The Untold Truth Behind the Tragedy. Her fingers shook over the keyboard. This was her chance to reveal everything, to clear her name, to fight for her love. But it also meant confronting her father and wounding Ethan all over again. She sobbed into her hands. Ethan, what must I do to make you believe me? Outside, thunder roared. A new storm was gathering, fiercer than any before. And this time, it wasn't only the ocean's fury, but two fractured hearts forced to face a truth from which neither could escape. Chapter 7, A Heart Amid the Storm. The fiercest storm of the year swept into Seattle. Wind howled between the skyscrapers, and rain lashed the streets like a whip. The entire city trembled beneath nature's fury. Yet within Amelia, there raged another tempest, wilder, more merciless than the one outside. For days, she had avoided Ethan. How could she not? He had driven her away, cast her out of his world with a gaze colder than ice. And yet, each night when she closed her eyes, she still saw him. His pained gray eyes, his rare smile, the warmth of his embrace in the workshop. She could not forget. Nor could she stop loving him. Meanwhile, Ethan drowned himself in torment. He threw his body into work, spending sleepless nights hunched over blueprints and experimental engines. To others, he claimed it was about progress. But only he knew the truth. He was running. Running from Amelia's brown eyes, running from emotions he could no longer control. Lucas, the one who had exposed the secret, appeared at his side. Walker, he said coldly, I know who she is. You can't let someone like that ruin everything you've built. Ethan's fists tightened, anger flickering in his eyes. She hasn't ruined anything. And what about her lies? Lucas sneered. If she truly cared, she never would have let you be deceived like that. Ethan turned away, refusing to answer. But inside, a war raged. He knew Amelia was not like her father. And yet, the shadow of the past, the loss of his brother, the scars of betrayal, rose up every time he heard the name Richard Hart. That evening, Amelia made her choice. She finished the article she had been too afraid to write. Her hand trembled, but her words cut sharp, the truth from the files she had uncovered. Richard Hart had been coerced by greedy superiors, forced to sign off on faulty designs. He bore guilt, yes, but he had not been the sole hand of destruction. The true crime lay in the system. Tears blurred the keys as she typed the final words. Publishing this could make Ethan see the truth, but it could also tear open wounds he was desperate to bury. Would he hate her more, or finally forgive her? She had no answer, but she had no choice. Just then her phone rang, a number she didn't know. She answered, and a frantic voice shot through the line. Amelia Hart, I'm calling from the hospital. Ethan Walker has been in an accident. He's unconscious. We need family. The blood drained from her body. The phone slipped from her numb fingers. The hospital blazed with harsh white light. Amelia rushed down the corridor, her heart pounding wildly. Outside the emergency room, Ethan's team stood in stunned silence. Lucas was among them, his face grim. What happened? Amelia gasped. One of the engineers spoke quietly. During an engine test, the propeller jammed. Ethan rushed in to stop it. A shard of metal hit him. Amelia staggered back, tears spilling uncontrollably. The doors to the operating room slammed shut. Inside, the man she loved was fighting for his life. She sank into a chair, burying her face in trembling hands. Ethan, please don't leave me. I haven't told you everything. Haven't shown you that my love has never been a lie. Footsteps echoed down the hall. Lucas approached, his tone sharp as ice. If he survives, you should disappear from his life. Ethan doesn't need another heart to destroy him. Amelia lifted her tear-stained face. Her eyes burned, fierce with resolve. You're wrong. Ethan doesn't need lies, but he needs the truth. And the truth is I love him with everything I am. For a moment, Lucas faltered under the fire of her gaze. Then he turned away without another word. Hours dragged by in unbearable silence. At last, the red light above the operating room flicked off. The doctor emerged, pulling down his mask. The patient is stable. He's out of danger, but recovery will take time. Relief shattered through her. Amelia burst into tears, sobs mixing with a smile of pure gratitude. When they wheeled Ethan out, his face was pale, but his breathing steady. She clasped his hand, her own trembling as she bent close and whispered, Ethan, can you hear me? I'm not leaving. No matter how violent the storm outside, I'll be here. His eyelids fluttered. Slowly, his lashes quivered, and at last, his gray eyes opened weak, but locked onto hers. Amelia, his voice was faint, almost carried away by the wind. Don't leave me. Her tears fell onto his skin. I'll never leave you. Beyond the hospital window, the storm raged on. But within Amelia's heart, a fragile light flickered to life. It was not only hope for Ethan's recovery, it was hope that their love might yet endure. Amid the storm, their hearts had found each other, though bleeding, though shadowed, still beating as one. Chapter 8, Beyond the Storm. The first rays of sunlight after the storm streamed through the hospital window, gently illuminating the white room. The steady beeping of the heart monitor echoed like a rhythm of survival, the very rhythm Amelia had prayed for over endless nights. Ethan lay on the bed, his body still frail, but his eyes were open now. The gray in them shimmered with life. He looked at Amelia, the woman who had stayed awake by his side night after night, her hair disheveled, her eyes shadowed with fatigue, yet still achingly beautiful. Are you still here? Ethan's voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. Amelia tightened her grip on his hand, tears spilling once more. I promised you, no matter what happens, I will never leave you. Ethan closed his eyes, breathing deeply as though gathering all his courage. Amelia, I tried to push you away, tried to convince myself that this love was a lie. But in the moment, I thought I'd never wake again. The only thing in my mind was you. I don't want to live in a world without you. Her body trembled, her heart breaking wide open. Ethan. Before she could say more, he gripped her hand tighter, his gray eyes filled with raw honesty and lingering pain. But your father, he destroyed my family. I've lived my whole life hating him, and I fear I don't have the strength to let that go. In that moment, Amelia knew this was the turning point. She reached into her bag, pulled out a manuscript, and laid it gently on his chest. Ethan, the truth isn't what you think. I found the evidence. My father was guilty, yes, but he wasn't the only one. He was used too. He carried that burden all his life, and so have I. Her voice broke as tears choked her. I just need you to know, I love you with all my heart. Not to erase the past, but to walk with you into the future. If you can't forgive him, I will accept that. But please, don't punish me for sins that aren't mine. Ethan went silent. Her words cut like a blade into his wounds, Yet at the same time, they felt like light seeping into the darkest corners of his heart. Slowly, he picked up the papers, his eyes tracing each trembling yet undeniable line of truth. After a long while, his eyes welled with tears. He turned to her, his trembling hand rising to caress her cheek. "I've lived too long with hatred, so long that I forgot what it means to love. But you've shown me, love isn't about forgetting, it's about forgiving." Tears spilled down Amelia's face onto his hand. "Ethan," he whispered, "forgiving your father may take time, but forgiving you never needed time." Weeks later, Ethan had recovered. On an autumn afternoon, he led Amelia to the harbor, the very place he and his brother had once dreamed of setting sail into the world. The sea sparkled beneath the sunset, waves lapping gently against the docked ship. Ethan stood there, the wind tousling his hair, a small box in his hand. He turned to her, his gaze serious, yet blazing with hope. "Amelia, we've weathered storms that felt impossible to survive. I once feared love only brought loss, but you've shown me love can heal, too." He opened the box, revealing a ring that gleamed in the fading light. "I can't promise the road ahead will be easy, but I promise from now on, we'll face every storm together. Will you marry me?" Amelia froze, breathless. Tears brimmed again, but this time they were tears of joy. She nodded, her voice trembling. "Yes, even beyond the storm, I want to walk with you." Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms. Their kiss was long and tender, washing away the wounds of the past. On the harbor, the sun sank into the horizon, leaving a final golden trail across the sea. The waves kept rolling, the wind kept blowing, but within their hearts, the storm had finally calmed. Their love, once tested by hatred, lies, and loss, had at last found its peaceful shore. Because beyond the storm, there is always light. Epilogue: The Light of Tomorrow. 3 years later. Seattle had entered autumn once again, with crimson maple leaves burning like tiny flames along the long avenues. The city changed with each passing day, new towers rising, old buildings dressed in fresh attire. But for Amelia and Ethan, the greatest change was the way they now looked toward the future. At the aerospace design workshop by the sea, laughter mingled with the sound of engines. Ethan, whose once cold, piercing gaze had long since softened, stood beside a new prototype aircraft. On its side, the name Aurora gleamed brightly, the project he and Amelia had built together, carrying the meaning: the dawn after the storm. Amelia entered, holding a stack of documents. She was no longer the lone journalist of the past, but Ethan's indispensable partner in both work and life. She smiled at the sight of him, focused on fine-tuning the engine, his hair tousled by the wind. "You skipped lunch again," she scolded lightly, setting down a paper bag with sandwiches. Ethan looked up, his gray eyes lighting with joy every time they found hers. "With you here, why would I need food?" Amelia laughed, shaking her head, though her gaze brimmed with tenderness. She knew his words weren't merely teasing. After everything, Ethan had finally learned to place love before his obsessions and pain. A tiny hand tugged at Amelia's dress. She bent down and scooped up a little boy with clear gray eyes, a perfect reflection of Ethan. "Looking for your father, Nathan." The boy giggled and ran to Ethan. Ethan lifted him easily, his arms both strong and gentle. He kissed Nathan's forehead, then glanced at Amelia, his eyes full of unspoken gratitude. That evening, the three of them returned to the harbor, the very place that had once witnessed a proposal beneath the sunset. The sea still whispered with waves, but now it no longer symbolized tempests. It sang softly of peace. Ethan sat down, letting Nathan play in the sand, then took Amelia's hand. "Do you remember? 3 years ago, right here, I was afraid. I wasn't sure we could survive it all, but you believed in us." Amelia rested her head on his shoulder, her voice as light as the ocean breeze. "Because I knew, no matter how fierce the storm, we'd always find each other." Ethan smiled, tightening his grip on her hand. In the sky, the sun sank, leaving behind a streak of fiery orange and red, radiant as if heralding a new beginning. Nathan suddenly looked up and cried out, "Mom, Dad, look, a rainbow." They lifted their eyes to see a rainbow arching across the sky after the rain, a perfect symbol of their journey, that after every sorrow, there would always be the colors of hope. Amelia whispered, "Beyond the storm lies our tomorrow." Ethan leaned down and kissed her softly, while Nathan's laughter rang out beneath the golden twilight. And there, within the embrace of their little family, they found what was most precious: love, forgiveness, and everlasting peace.
Thank you so much for watching until the end. Don't forget to subscribe to support Elena, storyteller, and stay tuned for the next heartfelt video.